Happy Friday. Welcome to Mixed Level Yoga with a guided 10-minute meditation for those of you that want to stay at the end. Let's begin in child's pose. So have your feet together at the rear of your mat and knees together or as wide apart as it's most comfortable for you to be able to drop your pelvis down to meet your feet. And then let your forehead rest on something. If it doesn't easily meet the ground, you could use a prop like a pillow or block to rest it on, or even your forearms. And then wherever you want to place your arms here so that you can just allow a moment to let your body be still and make a conscious transition of what you were focusing on just a minute ago to what's happening here and now. I want to open with a short quote by the poet Rumi. Don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. As many of us are awaiting election results and going through what we've been going through this past year, these several months, uncomfortable emotions, to say the least, can arise. In the practice of yoga, ahimsa, which is nonviolence, the yoga of satya, which is truthfulness, and the yoga of svadhyaya, which is self-study, all parts of the 8 limbs of yoga, bring us into awareness of self and remembering that though uncomfortable emotions may arise within us, we can use them to be better aware of what we're processing and how to be there for ourselves. The yoga practice is not about escaping so-called reality, but rather leaning into reality with a sense of compassion to self. So that in embracing all parts of our being, even the most vulnerable parts, fear, anger, resentment, whatever may arise, anxiety, as we accept all of that within ourselves as it changes from moment to moment, we empower ourselves to live wholeheartedly. So that whatever challenge or circumstance arises, we choose to expand our hearts rather than contract. So how do we bring that into the physical yoga practice that takes up most of this hour? We come across poses that might make us want to contract or make us see things that have been hidden under the surface, whether it's fear because our body's been injured in the past. Within a certain pose, you might feel triggered. How do we lean into being able to have greater awareness with a sense of kindness and an openness to truth? So let's bring that practice into the physical so that we can sharpen that tool when we bring our yoga off the mats. As you sit here now in child's pose, if you haven't already, I invite you to deepen your breath. Perhaps it feels like a good release to sigh the exhales, maybe even loudly through your mouth, allowing whatever needs to move through you freedom to do so. And as we start in this resting position, child's pose, remember that this is your practice. I'm merely here to offer suggestions and things you might want to focus on. But you choose what's right for you in each moment as you're listening to your body respond. You can always come back down here to rest anytime. So let's extend the arms forward if they're not already. Actively straightening your arms as you reach your fingertips forward while lifting the elbows off the floor. Spin the outer sides of your upper arms towards the ground so that you can feel the tops of your shoulders broaden. You have a little more space across the shoulder blades too. And as you continue to rotate your triceps towards the earth, spread your fingers flat on the ground and root down more firmly in between your thumb and index fingers. Feel those sort of counter forces. Thumb and index rooting down, triceps rolling down. And now let your tailbone lengthen more actively behind you towards your feet as the crown of your head more actively lengthens forward, opening space at your throat and the back of your neck. Let's take a couple more breaths here, lengthening into the sides of your torso, from outer hips to armpits. Now keep those counteractions of your upper arms and your thumb and index. Separate your feet a little wider than hips distance. Tuck your toes behind you. Keep your hands and feet where they are as you bend your knees and lift your hips as high as you can, pressing your weight towards the rear edge of your mat in downward facing dog. Now allow a moment to just shift around, like pedaling your feet slowly in place. You can begin to lengthen and warm up your hamstrings and calves. Let your head completely release down. You might even gently shake it, nod it, find freedom in your neck. Keep rooting down between thumb and index, rotating the triceps towards the floor, lifting the shoulder blades back and away from your neck. Now bend your knees as much as you might need to truly lift your tailbone as high as possible here. Then firm your belly towards your back and try to create the feeling of a flat back as you look at one spot on the ground towards your feet, lengthening your neck. Deep breaths, now closing your lips, while softly constricting the back of your throat so you can listen in to a soft whispering sound. We're in downward dog, holding still now for 3 to 5 more breaths. If you get tired and need to rest, you can always set your knees on the ground. And if you're still here, lift your sitting bones and your attention to the front creases of your hips and think of firming them further back towards the wall behind you so your weight sinks down through your heels, even if your heels are not touching the floor. Take another breath in. Then exhale, lower your knees to the ground, coming down to all fours. Spin your fingertips to turn out, stretching the inner sides of your wrists and forearms, whatever degree, pointing towards the outer edges of your mat or your knees. And let's take a few cat-cows, moving to the sound of your breath. Inhale, glide your spine forward, then coil your chest up, rolling the shoulders down behind you. Exhale, contract. Look down between your knees, rounding your back. A few more times. Inhale, lengthen your spine, then coil your chest up, cow pose. Exhale, contract your belly, doming your back, cat pose. And on your own, take 3 more slow cycles of cat-cow or Virasana. Finishing the last cycle, exhale and relax to a neutral spine. Spin your index fingers to face forward again so they're parallel to each other. Now entering plank pose for 3 to 5 breaths. Now you could keep your knees on the ground for added support. Make sure that your shoulders are directly above your wrists. Or you could add more rigor and come into full plank, straightening both legs, where you press your heels back and engage the front muscles of your thighs. Steady your gaze on the ground in front of your hands and feel the natural length and curvature of your neck. Lift your lower belly, and broaden across your shoulders. Now think of a plank of wood, a straight line, sturdy. Take that with you as you exhale to glide forward. Bend your elbows back to hug your side ribs and carefully lower all the way to the ground. Lower your right ear onto your mat and slide your right arm straight open to the right with a palm face down. We're going to give the inner shoulders a stretch. Pressing the ground away with your left hand beside your left shoulder, gently roll over onto your right hip. Breathing in, feel your two collarbones broaden away from your sternum. Breathing out, soften both of your shoulders further down your back. As we're here for about 4 more cycles of breath, you might explore leaning further back, maybe stepping the left foot behind you, outside of your mat, just feeling into the amount of weight that feels like a good balance of opening up the front of your right shoulder while not inducing any unnecessary pain. On your next exhalation, roll onto your belly slowly, lying face down. Take your time to switch sides, placing your left ear on the earth and sliding your left arm straight out to the left with a palm face down. Pressing the ground away with your right hand beside your right shoulder, begin to roll over onto your left hip. Relax both of your shoulder blades further down your back. Taking your time as you breathe for about 4 more cycles here. Notice if the side of your shoulders feels tighter or more open, and how you might listen to that in the amount of weight you lean back. Letting go of expectations for what our body should be doing, but instead being present, open to what arises in sensation to inform you. With your next exhale, let's roll back onto our bellies to prepare for either Cobra pose or upward facing dog. Setting up the same way, place your wrists alongside your floating ribs, fingertips face forward. As you bend your elbows, see they stack right above your wrists, hugging your sides. Separating your ankles, hips distance, point your toes to actively lengthen your legs. Pressing the tops of your feet on the earth with your knees lifted off the ground. With Cobra, keep your pelvis heavy on the floor as you contract right underneath your shoulder blades to lift and broaden your chest. If Upward Dog, press down through hands too and lift your pelvis off the floor, drawing your shoulder heads back to stack above your wrists. Let's stay a few breaths. Notice that you're not straining your neck by looking too high up, but you're relaxing the shoulders downward, opening your chest, firming the tops of the feet down. And then as you exhale, lift your belly, lift your hips, draw your weight towards the rear wall, back to downward facing dog. Let's take 3 deep breaths here. Let your body be still. Steady your gaze on one focal point. And listen to the balanced inhale and exhales of your breath. Bending your knees, lift your heels and hips high, look in front of your hands. At the end of your exhalation, try holding your breath out, lift your pelvic floor while you walk or lightly jump to the front of your mat. Landing in a forward fold with your feet hips width apart, parallel. Feel free to bend your knees as much as you might need to elongate your spine rather than rounding your back. Press your fingertips on the ground ahead or your legs. And as you inhale, stretch your spine forward, rising towards the tip of your nose, half forward fold. Exhale, hinge forward into a forward fold. From down to your feet, inhale, sweep your arms overhead to rise and stand. Watch your palms touch. Then exhale, trace your thumbs together at your heart and pause here with hands at heart center. Allow a moment to perhaps clarify a dedication or intention for your practice. Warming up our bodies and energizing, allowing flow. Let's enter 3 rounds of Sun Salutation A, continuous breath-led movement. Arms by your sides, mountain pose. Inhale, circle your arms overhead and gaze up, palms meet. Exhale, bow forward with a long spine. Press the ground of your legs as you inhale to lengthen halfway up. Lower your hands and exhale, step back into your version of plank, lowering forward through forelimb staff, all the way down for cobra, or halfway down, flip your toes into upward facing dog. Then exhale, lift your hips back into downward facing dog. Being still, steady your gaze, and rebalance your breath. 3 to 5 cycles of breath. When you're ready, bend your knees and look past where you want to land your feet. On emptied breath, walk or float to the top. Then inhale, press with your fingertips to lengthen your spine forward. Exhale, fold in. From down to your feet, inhale, sweep your arms and look up as you rise. Exhale, arms down in mountain pose. Keep going for 2 more cycles. Inhale, raise your arms in Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, bow in Uttanasana. Inhale, half bow in Ardha Uttanasana. Step to plank, slightly jump into Chaturanga Dandasana to lower. Inhale into Cobra, Bhujangasana, or Upward Dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Exhale into Downward Dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. 3 to 5 breaths. When you feel ready, walk or float to the top of your mat and take the last Sun Salutation A at your own pace of breath. Keep going. We'll meet in Downward Facing Dog. As you re-steady your body in downward facing, allow for 2 more deep breaths, feeling the entire length of your inhalation. Match the entire length of your exhalation. Then bring your feet together to touch, still in Downward Dog. Inhale, raise your right leg behind you. Exhale, bend your right knee and turn open at the hip. Allow a few breaths here, stretching the inner thighs apart, maybe even rotating your right leg at the hip as you warm up that joint. Relax your neck, steady your gaze on the ground towards your left foot. We're going to warm up our center area just a bit. So as you inhale, re-extend your right leg behind you. If you need to modify here, you can lower your left knee to the ground. As you exhale, look forward and cross your right knee to tap the outside of your left upper arm, stacking your shoulders over your wrists. Inhale, re-extend your right leg behind. Then exhale, tap your right knee outside of your right upper arm, coming forward to plank again. Inhale, raise your right leg. Last one, bend your knee towards your nose, round forward, and softly step your right foot directly between your hands. Warrior two, spinning your left heel down, align your right heel to intersect the arch of your left foot. Then pressing down through both feet, windmill your arms apart to rise up, standing. So with arms wide open, have your ankles land just about under your wrists. If that feels too intense, you could shorten your stance slightly. Left leg slightly turning inward is straight, root down through the outside edge of that foot. Right leg completely turning outward. As you bend the knee over the heel, you're aligning the center of your right knee with center toe down the center line of your mat. Feel the bowl shape that is your pelvis, sitting upright with a lower belly slightly engaged. Tall spine, relaxed shoulders. Steady your eyes on one spot just past your right hand. Taking about 4 more breaths here. Virabhadrasana 2. With your next exhale, cartwheel your hands to the ground and step back to downward facing dog, or flow through a vinyasa or cat-cow if you're choosing to move first. And when you arrive in downward facing, bring your feet together to touch. Inhale, raise your left leg behind you. Exhale, bend your left knee and turn open at the hip. Now for a few breaths, you might choose to rotate your left leg gently at the hip socket while releasing your head and equally lengthening your arms, pressing the ground away. Then inhale, straighten your left leg behind you as you square your hips. Gaze forward and exhale, twist, crossing your left knee to tap your right tricep in plank pose. Inhale, raise your left leg again. This time, tap your left knee outside of your left upper arm in plank pose. Inhale, raise your left leg. Exhale, round forward, bending the knee towards your nose to gently set your left foot directly between your hands. Warrior two. Spin your right heel down. Align left heel to arch of right foot. Then press down through your feet and cartwheel your arms apart to stand. So ankles just about under wrists. Right leg slightly turns inward as you straighten it. Left leg completely turning outward as you align center of knee with center toe down the center line of your mat. Pelvic bowl upright, spine tall, shoulders relaxing down as you steady your gaze just ahead of your left hand. Let's take 4 more breaths here. With an exhale, cartwheel your hands to the ground. Choose to either flow through a vinyasa, take a moment to rest in child's pose, or directly meet us in downward facing dog. When you arrive in downward, 3 to 5 breaths. From here, try to keep your left and right hips the same level as you inhale to raise your right leg behind you. Then exhale, engage your belly to softly land the foot inside of your right hand. This time, keep your feet hips width apart and spin your left heel to the ground. Keep your 2 hips facing forward and begin to rise up, arms overhead in warrior one. As you're bending your right knee just over the heel, draw the thigh bone back deeper into your hip socket. Keeping that, straighten your left leg entirely, firming the outer edge of the heel into the floor as you spin your inner left thigh slightly towards the wall behind you. Lift your frontal hip bone slightly. Allow your tailbone to descend, lengthening your lower back, then raising your arms. Feel the length up the sides of your torso, up to your fingertips. With shoulders relaxing down, chest broad and lifted. Steady your gaze forward or overhead, taking 3 more breaths. Warrior 1. Entering Degasana, bring your arms down by your sides with your palms facing forward. Feel the open space at your chest and throat and maintain it as you hinge forward from your hips, leaning diagonally forward so that your belly is just hovering off of your right thigh. Now focus your eyes on one spot towards the front edge of your mat or in front of it, and continue to scissor your right hip behind you slightly, your left hip slightly forward. Draw your navel in towards your back, broaden your chest, and now relax the face, taking 2 more breaths. You might raise your arms overhead if you want to play with a little more fire in this posture. Lower your fingertips to the ground and set your back knee onto the earth. Firm down to your right foot and raise your arms in a kneeling lunge, entering a twist. Use your right thumb to hook the right outer hip crease downward and lengthen your spine forward again as you breathe in. At your waistline, twist to your right and either lower your left hand on the floor or a block just under your left shoulder, or further the twist by hooking your left elbow outside your right thigh. Or you could choose to open your arms apart or join your hands in prayer at the middle of your chest. As we're here exploring whatever depth of the twist is available for 5 more breaths, you could choose to tuck your left toes and lift your left knee into a high lunge. Be mindful to keep your 2 hips leveled so you're not twisting your pelvis, but you're rotating your rib cage, twisting at your waistline. Now take a look at your right foot. Lower your hands to frame that ankle. You might place your hands on blocks if that's more accessible. Step your left foot 1 into a shorter stance and spin your left heel down. Now with both legs straight, both heels on the ground, keep your 2 hips facing forward as we bow in to pyramid fold. As you breathe in, lengthen your chest forward, soften your shoulders back. And as you breathe out, only fold deeper if you can do so, while honoring the full length and integrity of your spine, which means you don't round the shoulders and close off your neck or throat. From here, step back into downward facing dog or Adho Vinyasa if you choose to flow. In downward dog, keep the height of your 2 hips even as you inhale to raise your left leg behind you. Exhale, lightly step the foot inside of your left hand. With your feet hips width apart, spin your right heel to the ground. With both hips facing forward, rise up into Warrior 1. Now bending your left knee just above the heel, draw your thigh bone back deeper into the hip socket. Keep that as you straighten the right leg, pressing your outer heel into the earth and spinning your inner right thigh slightly behind you. By lifting your frontal hip bones slightly towards your bottom front ribs, Allow your tailbone to lengthen downward, raising your arms high while relaxing your shoulders away from your neck. Steady your gaze ahead or overhead for 3 more breaths. Virabhadrasana 1. Degasana, bring your arms down by your sides, palms face forward. Keep your legs as they are, and then lean your torso forward, creating a diagonal long line from the crown of your head, tailbone, to inner right heel. With your belly engaged, lift it slightly away from your front thigh. Gaze on the ground ahead, softening your mouth, softening your eyes. Last 2 breaths, you might choose to add your arms overhead like you're holding a beach ball. Then set your 2 hands down and lower your right knee. Lift your torso and arms into a kneeling lunge, preparing to twist. With your left thumb, hook your outer left hip down. Inhale, lengthen your spine forward. At your waistline, exhale, twist to your left. Either lower your right hand on the ground or block right under your shoulder, or hook your right elbow outside of your left thigh, opening your arms wide or joining your hands in prayer. Here for 5 more breaths, you might choose, if you did on the first side, a high lunge, knee off the floor. With each inhale, visualize spine forward. Now gaze at the ground just before your left. Lower your hands to frame your left ankle, maybe using blocks. Step your right foot 1 foot forward into a shorter stance. Spin the right heel down. With both legs straight, both hips facing forward, lift your chest, lengthen your spine halfway up, breathe in. Hinge forward from your hips, taking your time breath by breath to explore the range of your forward fold in pyramid pose. Parsvottanasana. From here, we're going to exit differently. So inhale, lift your chest and look forward. Then exhale, step your right foot next to your left. Arrive at the top of your mat in a forward fold. Bring your feet together to touch. Then inhale, circle your arms overhead to rise up, mountain pose. Join your hands at your heart as we prepare for tree. Shift your weight. I'm going to mirror you as I face you onto your left foot. Turn open your right leg at the hip. Then hug the inside of your left ankle, calf, or thigh with the sole of your right foot. Press back with your standing leg. Feel a sense of sandwiching your midline to help open up your right thigh at the hip. Now notice the bowl shape of your pelvis. Align that bowl as even on left and right sides as you're able, and draw your navel inward and up towards your heart. Feel your body breathing. Notice what comes up in this space you're holding in the context of the pose. Any way you want to vary your arms. Perhaps even close your eyes. Just using the postures as well to experiment. Noticing our mental tendencies in certain kinds of situations. Take another deep breath. Join your hands at your heart and step your right foot down from Vrikshasana. If you want to give your left foot a shake or rotate at the ankle, take a moment. And then set your 2 feet on the ground next to each other. Stand tall and just feel a neutral stance for a moment. Use this neutral stance of mountain pose as a reference point. Feeling grounded, supported to rise, and centered. Now turn out your left leg and hug the inside of your right ankle, calf, or thigh. Press inward to open outward. Root downward to rise up. Feel the qualities in your breathing as you might explore whatever variations of your arms. Last few breaths in tree pose. Bring your palms together at your heart and step your left foot down. Maybe give your right foot some movement if you need. So let's come back to the top of our mats. Feet together to touch, preparing for chair pose. Bend your knees together to touch. Perhaps graze the floor with your fingertips and try to keep your hips that low for a few more breaths as you raise your arms. Look down towards your feet and glide your shin bones back enough where your toes are visible. And gaze forward and open your chest. Relax your shoulders down. Hug your front ribs inward towards your back body and draw your tailbone closer to the ground. Last 2 breaths, Utkatasana. With an exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lengthen halfway. This time have your fingertips on blocks or the ground where your spine could be parallel to the floor. You might bend your knees. Flex your left foot and begin to raise it behind you, keeping your 2 hips leveled in height, entering modified warrior 3. You could bend your right knee if your hamstring feels resistant. Lift your navel towards your spine, look ahead of your hands on the ground, and lengthen this horizontal line from the crown of your head, tailbone, to your inner left heel. Maybe you lift your hands off the floor and add wings. Maybe you reach your arms forward and add some fire. Play with it, a few more breaths. Entering half moon pose. You might start with hands together at your heart. Lower your right hand 6 inches forward of your right pinky toe, out to the right upper corner. Left hand to left hip or up to the sky. Turn your chest completely to face your left wall. Naturally stacking your left shoulder over your right shoulder, over your right wrist. Keep flexing your left foot for added stability. Now, if there's any variation you want to explore in Ardha Chandrasana, like bending your left knee towards your belly and catching the top of the foot to coil your chest open, feel free. Let's take a few more breaths. Find one point of focus for your eyes. With your left leg straight, slowly step your left foot behind you, arriving in warrior 2. Arms wide open, standing. Deep breath in. And exhale completely. So warrior 2, straighten your right leg. Let's prepare for triangle. You might want 2 or 3 inches shorter in stance than warrior 2. With your legs straight, aligning right heel to arch of left foot, slide your pelvis sideways towards the rear edge of your mat while reaching your right hand forward towards your front wall before lowering your hand onto your right leg or just to the right of your leg, maybe on a block where arm and leg could firm against each other as you raise your left arm and spin your chest slightly to fix the sky. Now it feels okay. If it feels okay on your neck, try gazing up towards your left thumb. If it doesn't, look forward or down. Relax both shoulders away from your neck. Feel your right outer hip roll underneath your body through the turnout of your right leg. Stability at your center. 3 more breaths in triangle pose. Utthita Trikonasana. Sweep your left arm overhead. And let's lower your left hand on the inside of your right ankle. Entering side plank, let's begin modified. Lower your left knee onto the floor right under your left hip. Bring your right hand to your right hip. Slide your right foot all the way to the rear edge of your mat, spinning your right heel onto the ground. Now you can keep your left knee on the floor for added support as you raise your right arm. If you want to enter a full side plank, straighten both of your legs, flex both of your feet to stack. Press the ground away with every part of your body touching the ground in the principle of rooting down to rise up, lifting the left hip. Last few breaths. If there's any variation you want to add, like lifting your right foot to hover, taking tree pose with your right knee bent towards the sky. And if you're taking tree, you might even lower into a vinyasa in tree, placing your hands in the ground. If you're choosing to flow, up to you. You might choose to rest in child's pose. Both feet are on the floor if you're flowing when you enter your back bend cobra or upward dog. Let's eventually arrive in downward facing for a few breaths of stillness. When you're ready, arrive at the top of your mat in a standing forward fold. Bring your feet together to touch. Crawl your fingertips forward and inhale, lengthen your spine. Yeah. Now you can place your hands in your blocks so that your spine is parallel to the floor. Flexing your right foot, leg slowly behind you. Level your 2 hips as you engage your belly towards your spine. Gaze ahead of your hands and broaden your chest. Feel this horizontal line from the crown of your head, tailbone to inner right heel. Now in Warrior 3, take a few more breaths to explore. Arms wide open, arms forward, however you might want to change it up. Half moon pose. Bring your right hand to right hip. Lower your left hand, upper left corner from your left pinky toe, maybe on a block. Turn your chest completely to face your right wall, stacking your 2 shoulders over your left wrist. Left knee and toes are still tracing the midline of your mat and facing forward. Right leg is about parallel to the floor behind you. Maybe you raise your right arm up. Or you might come into Chapasana if you did so on the first side, where you bend your right knee towards your belly, catch the top of your right foot, kick the leg towards straight as you pull the foot, opening the right side of your chest. Find one focal point. Feel your body steady. 3 more breaths. And taking your time from your right leg straight, bend your left knee and softly step back into Warrior 2. Feel your breath in and let it all go. Straighten your left leg to prepare for triangle, and you might want a slightly shorter stance than Warrior 2, but keep aligning your left heel to the arch of your right foot. Arms wide open, legs straight. Slide your pelvis sideways towards the back edge of your mat, reaching your left hand forward then down onto your left leg, or just to the left of your leg, maybe on a block, arm and leg pressing against each other. As you rotate your left glute, outer hip slightly under your body, lengthen your tailbone towards your right heel and the crown of your head towards your front wall, raising your right arm up as you spin your chest slightly to face it. Steady your gaze and let's take 4 more breaths here in Utthita Trikonasana, triangle pose. Sweep your right arm overhead, look at the ground inside of your left ankle and place your right palm there. Set your right knee to the ground and bring your left hand to your left hip. So make sure that your right wrist is just under your right shoulder and you're spreading the fingers wide. Index finger is pointing towards the front of your mat. Step your left foot all the way to the rear of your mat, sole of the foot grounded. You're now in modified side plank. If you want to come into the full Vashisthasana, straighten both of your legs, stack both flexed feet, and raise your left arm. Rooting down to lift your right hip. Perhaps you explore other variations with your left leg. Maybe bending the knee towards the sky, coming into tree. Let's take a few more breaths. Sweep your left arm overhead. Choose if you want to flow, perhaps with your tree. Take rest. This time we'll meet in child's pose. At first posture, we begin in child's pose. Let's take 3 clearing lion's breaths. Deeply inhale into your belly. And as you exhale, open your eyes and mouth wide, sticking out your tongue and crossing your eyes if you want to do it traditionally. Try that twice more. Breathe in deeply, stick out your tongue, and exhale completely. Last time. Walk your hands back alongside your knees. Tuck your chin towards your chest and inhale to roll your spine upright. So now you're sitting in hero's pose. If this is uncomfortable for your knees, you could grab a block, pillow, or any kind of elevating prop and place it right in between your ankles, like a stool you could sit on, and so your knees won't be bending as much. Make sure that your toes are pointing back. They're not pointing outward to the left and right sides. Now, if you're able to sit on your calves, you might go a little further and roll your calves aside and sit on the ground in between your ankles, just as long as your knees are healthy. Knees no wider apart than hips distance, toes pointing back. Feel your pinky toenails pressing against the mat. Now from here, you might be able to begin walking your hands behind you, slowly entering Supta Virasana, or supine hero's pose. And if you are leaning back, take your time, deep breaths. Think of your tailbone pointing forward towards the space between your knees to avoid hyper-arching your lower back. Keep your knees rooting towards the ground. Those of you leaning back, you might be able to set your elbows on the ground or have blocks to catch your head and your upper back. Let's take about 10 more breaths, lengthening into the fronts of your thighs and hips. Now, if you're leaning back, take a few breaths to slowly rise with the help of your hands. And once you are lifted, let's crawl onto hands and knees.
a moment to release space behind your knees by straightening one leg at a time as you tuck the toes on the ground. Just a few breaths each. Switch sides if you haven't yet. And then let's bring the legs in front, preparing for 2 rounds of bridge pose, perhaps upward facing bow. Now, if you have a block, helpful to support your lower back by hugging the narrowest width of the block firmly between your thighs. Then separate your feet as wide apart as your thighs. Parallel your feet. Extend your arms forward and very slowly lower onto your back. Once your head meets the ground, locate your feet by having your arms straight down by your sides and sliding your feet back just until you could almost touch your heels with your fingertips. Not quite, just almost. And once you have your feet ready, ground them in your shoulders, tilt your chin slightly back away from your chest, then inhale to lift your pelvis off the floor while actively lengthening your thighs forward parallel to each other. Keep breathing for another 5 to 8 breaths before you choose to lower your spine on an exhalation. For a deeper bridge pose, walk your upper arms closer together underneath your back ribs. As you keep your arms straight, if your hands meet, you might interlace your fingers. Think of full breaths as you're helping to expand your lungs in this posture. Open up your heart center. Open your throat. When you lower your pelvis, your spine, just pause there without hugging your knees in for about 3 deep breaths. Deciding what your last heart opening posture is going to be, whether bridge on your own, again, 5 to 10 breaths. Restorative bridge, using the block to support your sacrum and just resting on it like this. Or upward facing bow, turning it up a notch. If upward bow, I'll walk you through it. Keep the block between your thighs, raise your arms and bend your elbows, flex your wrists and land your palms face down alongside your ears. Fingertips pointing at your shoulders and slightly turned out. Keep your arms parallel the whole time. Then lift your pelvis slowly. Energize your hamstrings and gently activate your glutes by imagining as if you're dragging your heels towards your glutes without moving them, while lengthening your thighs forward. Bring the crown of your head to the floor. You might widen your hands apart if needed. Draw your shoulder blades down your back and press the ground away with your hands. Be mindful of not compressing your lower back. If you feel any strain there, do less. You could come back down to bridge pose. When you finish, about 5 to 10 breaths, take it in reverse to lower. Crown of the head to the floor, chin to chest, then slowly lower one vertebra at a time. And this time, when you've lowered from your last back bend, bend your right knee into your chest and slide your left leg forward on the ground. Make sure you don't have any props under your body anymore. Scoot your pelvis a little closer to the right edge of your mat to prepare for a spinal twist. Open your right arm wide, flat on the floor. Turn your gaze towards your right hand as you cross your right thigh over your body, twisting to your left. Let it be more important that your right shoulder stays on the ground rather than how much you cross your right leg over. Let's take a few more breaths here. Slow breath into your nose Then sigh it out to your mouth as you unwind onto your back. Bring your pelvis to center. Then bend your left knee into your chest. Straighten your right leg on the floor. Scoot your pelvis a little closer to the left edge of your mat. Open your left arm wide, turn your gaze towards it, and begin to twist to your right side while rooting your left shoulder down. Take another deep breath into your belly, then out through your mouth, and come on back to center. Bend both knees into your chest. Add any last movement, maybe lifting your legs momentarily or a happy baby. Deep breath into your nose. Long exhale, clear it out to your mouth. Release your legs. And if you want to take a hip opening Shavasana pose, you could bend your knees apart and bring the soles of your feet together so that you are in supine bound angle pose if that's comfortable. You could also support your outer thighs with pillows or blocks. Otherwise, just let your legs splay out, palms turn up, shoulders rest down and away from your neck as you close your eyes. Feel that your body can rest in the position that it's in. Then allow it to be still as you stay aware of what happens internally in the next few minutes. Let go of controlling your breathing. Shavasana. Now we're about to enter our 10 minutes of guided meditation, should you choose to stay for that. If so, begin to move your body gently, whatever part wants to move first. Ease into a simple stretch while keeping your eyes closed. You might choose to gather your knees into your chest if that feels good to you. Eventually turning over to your right side and resting your head. Taking your time, lift your body up into a comfortable seat, perhaps sitting on top of a pillow, a block. Find a posture in which Your body feels alert and relaxed as you continue to breathe naturally. You might choose to close your eyes or open them and soften your gaze on one spot with the intention to look inward. It may be helpful to bring your thumb and first finger to touch. This is a guided meditation for dealing with uncomfortable or difficult emotions. And in doing so, this meditation practice allows us to use mindfulness and compassion to see emotions as messengers of how to love ourselves wholeheartedly. Through continuous practice, we can kindly honor whatever's alive in us, even in challenging moments, trusting that we won't abandon or mute ourselves in these times of need, but rather be our unconditional beloved friend. This practice is called RAIN. It's an acronym. It's been elaborated by teacher Tara Brock. The acronym stands for the 4 steps involved. R, recognize. A, allow. I, investigate. And N, nurture. Let's begin by recognizing whatever thoughts, feelings, or behaviors are affecting you right now. As you sit here, observe the way you're naturally breathing. Notice if its quality relates to anything you're feeling. Check in with your heart, any pronounced or subtle emotions there. How about your mind? Any repeating thoughts or types of thoughts? What about your body? Any reaction to something you've been feeling? Now the second stage, allow the experience to be there, just as it is. Let the thoughts, emotions, feelings, or sensations you noticed to just be there without trying to fix or avoid anything. You might allow fear by mentally whispering, "It's okay, this belongs." Let's use this next pause to deepen attention. Now the third stage, investigate with interest and care. Using your felt sense, meaning the raw, direct experiencing of a situation or memory before being clarified with words. It's an internal bodily awareness. With open curiosity to know the truth, you might ask yourself, what most wants my attention? How am I experiencing this in my body? What am I believing? What does this vulnerable place want from me? What does it most need? Let's pause for this. And lastly, nurture with self-compassion. Try to sense what the wounded, frightened, or hurting place inside you most needs. When you recognize you are suffering, even in strong emotions like anger, you have the ability to develop self-compassion and nurture your inner life intentionally. As you sense your need, offer some gesture or active care that might address it. Does it need a message of reassurance, of forgiveness, of companionship, of love? Experiment and see which gesture of kindness most helps comfort, soften, or open your heart. It might be the mental whisper, I'm here with you. I'm sorry, I love you, and I'm listening. Trust in your goodness. You might also find it healing to place your hand on your heart or visualize being embraced by a warm, radiant light. If it feels difficult to offer yourself love, call to mind a loving being, like a spiritual figure, loved one, or pet, and imagine their love and wisdom flowing into you. So bring your attention back to your body, to your breathing. Slide your palms to meet at your heart, lifting your heart as we bow into close. In what ways can we be with ourselves, especially when we most need understanding, deep listening, love? Let's close our practice chanting one Om. Take a deep breath. Light in me vows to light in you.